In a kingdom where dawn spilled golden light across endless gardens, there lived a princess named Rosalind, known far and wide as the Princess of Roses. Her palace was a fortress of crimson petals and sparkling fountains, where every morning the air was fragrant with the scent of roses in bloom. Rosalind's beauty was matched only by her gentle heart, but the world she lived in was far from gentle. Her kingdom, though rich and vibrant, was shadowed by the quiet grief of a curse that had lingered for generations, one that no treasure, spell, or sword could lift. Rosalind spent her days wandering the rose gardens, her long black hair flowing like ink over the pale silk of her gown, adorned with diamonds that caught the sunlight and reflected it like tiny stars. In her hair, delicate red roses were entwined, giving her an ethereal presence, as though the gardens themselves had woven her into their beauty. Her red lips curved in gentle smiles, but in her eyes, the shadow of sorrow often lingered. Not far from Rosalind's realm, in a neighboring village that hugged the edge of the forest, lived another princess. Though lesser known, she possessed a power no one could see but all would feel. Her name was Tulsi, and she was called the Keeper of Secrets. She had been raised not in a gilded palace but in a humble home, where the scent of basil leaves, wildflowers, and herbs perfumed the air. Tulsi had the gift to hear the whispers of the earth and to coax life from even the driest soil. Her hair, black as midnight, was crowned with fresh basil leaves every morning, and she wore gowns in shades of green and gold, shimmering with small gems that twinkled like dew. Her lips, touched with a soft rose hue, rarely smiled, for she carried the weight of knowing truths that the world was not ready for. The two princesses had never met, yet destiny, as always, moved silently. One evening, a shadow fell over Rosalind's garden. The roses, usually vibrant, began to wither overnight. Crimson petals curled into themselves, and their perfume faded into a bitter scent. Rosalind knelt among them, tears sliding down her cheeks, as her heart ached with a grief she could not name. A voice, soft yet urgent, spoke from the wind, "Seek the Keeper of Secrets, the basil holds the cure." Confused but desperate, Rosalind set forth on a journey to find this mysterious princess. She traveled through forests thick with mist, across rivers that sparkled like molten silver, and up mountains where the snow whispered ancient tales. All the while, her heart ached, not just for the roses, but for a sense of loneliness she had never shared with anyone, not even her closest attendants. Meanwhile, Tulsi sensed a disturbance in the balance of nature. The basil in her garden quivered, and the air around her hummed with a quiet warning. She knew that someone powerful and sorrowful was seeking her. When she saw Rosalind approaching, regal and radiant even in her grief, Tulsi's heart recognized the pain mirrored in the princess's eyes. Despite knowing the danger of outsiders, many sought her gifts for selfish gain. Tulsi felt compelled to help. Their meeting was not marked by fanfare. Rosalind arrived at Tulsi's cottage, her gown glittering with the remnants of morning dew and rose petals, and knelt before the younger princess. "I am Rosalind," she whispered. "My roses are dying. I was told you hold the secret that can save them." Tulsi studied her. "You carry grief like a cloak," she said softly. "The roses do not simply fade, they reflect the sorrow in your heart. If your sorrow is too deep, even I cannot mend them." Rosalind's eyes welled up. "I have carried it alone for too long. Will you help me bear it?" Tulsi nodded, and together they entered the basil grove, a place where the earth pulsed with ancient magic. Tulsi plucked a leaf and placed it in Rosalind's hand. "This basil carries the memory of the earth, the whisper of rain, and the hope of life. But the magic will not work unless you open your heart completely." For 3 nights, Rosalind stayed in the grove, confiding her fears, her regrets, and the silent sorrow of watching beauty fade. Tulsi listened, offering not only the balm of her magic but the gentle understanding that Rosalind had never received before. On the 3rd night, as a pale moon rose over the horizon, Rosalind's tears soaked the soil, mingling with the basil's roots. Slowly, the roses bloomed again, redder and more vibrant than ever. But their fragrance now carried a tinge of melancholy, a reminder that beauty often grows with pain. Yet the story does not end with a simple cure. As the roses revived, a darkness stirred, one born from envy and fear. The king of a distant land, hearing of the princess's power, sent envoys with demands and threats. Rosalind's kingdom trembled, and she realized that her sorrow was not the only burden she carried. Her people's lives rested upon her decisions. Tulsi, despite being younger and of humble birth, offered wisdom beyond her years. "Strength is not measured by crowns or armies," she said. "It is measured by the courage to protect what you love, even when the world turns against you." The princesses, side by side, faced the coming storm. They trained, studied the old spells hidden in Tulsi's ancient manuscripts, and walked among the villagers to understand their fears. Their bond grew. Not as princesses and subjects, but as two souls united by purpose and pain. When the king's emissaries arrived, demanding tribute and obedience, Rosalind and Tulsi confronted them, their combined aura of power radiating through the palace halls. The envoys faltered, unable to meet the gaze of two women whose hearts were stronger than steel and yet tender enough to heal wounds invisible to the eye. But the victory was bittersweet. In the final confrontation, Tulsi was gravely injured, saving Rosalind from a deadly spell cast by one of the king's sorcerers. Rosalind's screams echoed through the kingdom as she cradled Tulsi, tears staining the basil leaves in her hair. "No, not you," she cried. Tulsi smiled weakly, placing a trembling hand over Rosalind's. "The basil, the secret, it will live, through you. Remember me not with sorrow, but with hope, promise me." Rosalind nodded, her sobs shaking her entire being. "I promise. I promise, Tulsi." Tulsi's eyes closed, and a gentle wind swept through the grove, scattering basil leaves and rose petals into the sky. The magic of the basil, mingled with Tulsi's life force, surged through the land. The enemies were repelled, the kingdom's flowers bloomed brighter than ever, and a quiet peace settled over the realm. But Rosalind's heart bore the permanent ache of loss, a reminder that love and grief often walk hand in hand. Years later, Rosalind ruled her kingdom with wisdom and grace. She planted a basil grove in memory of Tulsi, tending it every morning with tears and prayers. The roses in her garden thrived, their scent a bittersweet echo of the bond that had saved them. She often walked among the basil leaves, whispering to them, feeling Tulsi's presence in the rustle of every leaf, in the shimmer of morning dew. Though sorrow lingered, Rosalind had become more than a princess of beauty. She had become a guardian of secrets, a bearer of strength, and a living testament to the power of love, friendship, and sacrifice. And in the quiet moments, when the wind stirred the basil and petals danced together in the sunlight, she could almost hear Tulsi's voice. "Remember, hope grows even from grief."